everybody, this is Overboy, and I'm going to be doing my top 10 favorite movie directors. This is part of my top 10 Tuesdays, where each Tuesday I do a different top 10 list. And this week I decided to do movie directors because it was something that I don't know if I've ever done before, and there's a lot of movie directors that I like, so before I get going, I'd like to do my honorable mentions. Robert Rodriguez, I love most of his movies, especially like the Spy Kids movies that I grew up with. I have a lot of nostalgia for them, but I love like the trilogy that has El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I love those movies, and From Dusk Till Dawn. There's a bunch of them that I love, and everything. So I definitely want to give him an honorable mention. Peter Jackson, who did the Lord of the Rings and King Kong and the Hobbit trilogy, the Heavenly Creatures, Brain Dead. He's done a lot of really great movies too. The Lovely Bones. So yeah, definitely wanted to mention him. Martin Scorsese. I know a lot of people are going to be shocked that he didn't make my top 10, but there's a lot of his stuff that I still need to see. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't have him on my top 10. Otherwise, he probably would have made it in there. And Wes Craven, I love most of his movies. John Carpenter, I love most of his. And out of newer directors, Ari Aster, I love his work, especially Midsommar. I almost said Kenobi. I love Midsommar, but I also love Hereditary too. Now, Jordan Peele, I love his movies so far. Get Out and Us, both of them were really good. I can't wait to see Nope. And Robert Eggers, I haven't seen The Northman yet, but I love The Lighthouse and The Witch. I can't wait to see The Northman. But yeah, so anyway, those are my honorable mentions. There was probably other ones that I forgot, but I can't fit everybody in a top 10, so I'm going to go ahead and get going. Coming in at number 10 is Frank Darabont. He's a really, really great director. He's only directed 4 movies, but every single one of them are movies that I absolutely love. He's the one that did The Shawshank Redemption, The Green Mile, The Majestic, and The Mist, and I love all 4 of those movies. The Majestic is just a very, very underrated drama with Jim Carrey and everything, and everybody loves The Shawshank Redemption. I know most people love The Green Mile as well. They're both really great movies. And then, of course, The Mist is another really good Stephen King movie. So he's directed 3 really great Stephen King adaptations, and but I think all 4 of these movies are really good, and I think he's a really good director. I'd love to see him direct more movies and stuff. I don't know that we ever will, but I would love for him to do something else. He hasn't done anything since The Mist, so he's kind of overdue for another new movie. But yeah, so Frank Darabont is number 10, and number 9 is Mel Gibson. This is another director who's only had a handful of movies. He's done like 5 movies, but every single one of them are really, really good. He started off with Man Without a Face, which is a pretty good little drama that he actually starred in and everything. He has this messed up face and he befriends this little boy. It's a pretty interesting movie. And then he did Braveheart, which he also starred in, which is probably my favorite movie he's ever been in, and everything. And I like Mel Gibson as an actor too, but I don't really like a lot of his newer acting performances. I think he's better behind the camera nowadays, and everything. And of course, he also directed Apocalypto, which is probably my favorite movie of his, and that movie was really, really awesome. And then his most recent one, Hacksaw Ridge, is one of the best horror movies in recent years, probably the best one since Saving Private Ryan for me. I absolutely loved Hacksaw Ridge. It was such a great movie with a great performance. And it was a movie that kind of made me realize that Andrew Garfield is a much better actor than I believed he was after the Spider-Man movies. But I love Mel Gibson's movies that he's directed. I think he's a really great director. he's not a very good person, but he's a great director and everything. I can't deny that I love the movies that he makes. He has some really good talent the behind the camera. So he's number 9, and number 8 is Chris Columbus. This is another director that I've always really liked quite a bit. Ever since I was a kid, he's directed one of my favorite comedy movies of all time with Mrs. Doubtfire, which is my favorite Robin Williams movie. He also directed the first 2 Harry Potter movies, which are 2 of my favorites in the franchise, and he did the first 2 Home Alone movies, which to me are the only movies in that franchise that really matter anyway. So I really love everything I've seen of that he's directed. The Percy Jackson movie that he directed I thought was okay. I know a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought it was alright. He hasn't really directed much in a while. I'd love to see him do something else. I haven't seen him direct a movie in a while. I know he did a couple of Christmas movies on Netflix, but he hasn't done one that's gone to theaters in a while. I'd love to see him do another one that goes to theaters, but yeah, so Chris Columbus is number 8, and number 7 is Kevin Smith. I like most of the movies that Kevin Smith has done, with the exception of, like, I'm not a huge fan of Cop Out. I don't hate it, but it's not one of my most favorites anymore. And I'm not as big on Dogma as I used to be, because I used to watch it all the time with my brother when we were younger, and I kind of wore myself out on it. But aside from those 2, I love all of his other movies that I've seen, which has been pretty much all of them. I love the Clerks movies, especially Clerks 2. It's one of my favorite sequels, but I also love the Jay and Silent Bob movies and all the other movies in the View Askew universe, Chasing Amy and stuff like that. Mallrats, I love those. And I love some of his more mainstream movies like Jersey Girl and Zack and Mary Make a Porno. There's quite a few. But I really like Kevin Smith's movies, and I can't wait to see Clerks 3 and what he does with that and everything. So Kevin Smith is number 7, and number 6 is Tim Burton. I love most of his movies, especially the ones with Johnny Depp. They're always the highlights of his movies to me, especially Sweeney Todd. I love that movie, but also love their other works: Edward Scissorhands, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Ed Wood, Sleepy Hollow, Corpse Bride, all of them. I love all those, and Dark Shadows. Alice in Wonderland I'm kind of mixed on, but I loved his new version of Dumbo and Planet of the Apes, which I know a lot of people don't like his version of, but I didn't mind it so much because it's the version that I used to watch as a kid. I never really watched the original ones growing up. I'd seen at least part of the original, but I don't even think I've seen all of that one. But I love his work on Planet of the Apes and Mars Attacks and Batman, and he's just one of those directors. Every movie he does I usually like and everything. I just love his unique style and his weirdness and everything, and I just love his movies and everything. And I can't wait to see the Wednesday Addams show that's coming out on Netflix that he's directing. But yeah, so Tim Burton is number 6, and number 5 is Sam Raimi. I absolutely love Sam Raimi. Every movie he's directed that I've seen, I have absolutely loved, from especially the Spider-Man movies. I grew up watching them and everything. Spider-Man was one of my favorite movies as a kid and everything. And Spider-Man 2 is my favorite superhero movie of all time. But he's also directed other great movies too, like the Evil Dead trilogy. I absolutely love those movies. Drag Me to Hell, Oz the Great and Powerful. Those are all movies that I absolutely love. The Quick and the Dead, a really great western with a twist to it. But yeah, so I love all the movies that Sam Raimi's directed that I've seen. There's a couple that I haven't seen yet. Some of his more mainstream movies, like For Love of the Game, I haven't seen that one all the way through. I've seen part of it, but not all of it. Um, and uh, Crime Wave, I haven't seen that one yet. Another really good movie of his is The Gift, which is a really underrated one. But I like most of his movies and stuff, and I think he's a really good director. So Sam Raimi is number 5, and number 4 is Robert Zemeckis. I really love everything that he's directed that I've seen, and I've seen all of his movies except for maybe one or two when he first started out, and then uh, I haven't seen a few of his newer movies like Welcome to Marwen or Allied, but I've loved everything that he's directed that I've seen, and I need to get caught up on him. He's another director I might have to do a review of all of his movies because he's done quite a few classics. Back to the Future trilogy, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Castaway, Polar Express, Flight, just to name a few. There are so many movies that he's directed that I love. The Witches, which is a remake that most people absolutely hate, but I absolutely loved. Like he just, everything he's done I've absolutely loved, and I think he's a very, very good director, and very I want to say he's underrated in a way, but in a way he's not, because he's made some of the most popular movies ever made, but he never gets credit for it either, though. So I think he deserves a lot more credit for his stuff, because he's made some of the best movies in recent years as well. So Robert Zemeckis is number 4, and number 3 is Quentin Tarantino. This is one of the other directors that I've seen every single movie that he's directed, and every single movie he's directed has been really, really good. Not very. I don't think there's very many directors that I could say that on, but there's not one movie he's done so far that I haven't liked. And everything. My favorite is probably definitely Pulp Fiction, but I love Reservoir Dogs and the Kill Bill movies, and Inglourious Bastards, Django Unchained, and The Hateful Eight. I think are all excellent movies, and I really like Jackie Brown and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, even though they're not my most favorites out of the stuff he did, but I love them. And Death Proof is pretty underrated. So like all of his movies are really good. There's not really one movie that Quentin Tarantino's ever made that I've disliked. I actually think he's probably the only director that I could say every single movie he's directed is a 10 out of 10 for me, which is very, very rare for me, because even most directors on this list have movies that aren't 10 out of 10s, but there's not one Quentin Tarantino movie I think that doesn't deserve a 10 out of 10 and everything. And he almost was number 2, and I really debated on whether to have him at number 2 or 3, but I'm gonna go ahead and have him at number 3. And number 2 is George Lucas. Now, I know he directed the prequels, and they're pretty hated and stuff, and I have a lot of my own criticisms towards George Lucas on stuff he did with the prequels and everything. I'm not really having him on here because of that, but he's directed 3 other movies, and one of them was the original Star Wars movie, which alone right there is enough to put him on the list for me, because without him we would have never had any of the Star Wars movies, so he deserves to be on the list for that alone, because Star Wars is one of the reasons why I love movies so much. But he also directed American Graffiti, which is a really, really good movie, and THX 1138, which I haven't seen yet. But everything I've seen, I've loved, and I think that THX is going to be another one that I like a lot too. I'm going to try to watch it here before too long. I might review all of his movies at some point. I've done the Star Wars movies, but I might re-review them sometime, and then after I've reviewed them, or before, re-review the other ones that he directed. But yeah, so George Lucas is number 2, and my number 1 favorite movie director of all time is Steven Spielberg. If you follow my channel, you probably already knew this because I've said it a million times, but I just absolutely love Spielberg. Every movie that he's directed that I've seen, I have liked for the most part. There's only one movie that I didn't really care for, which was The Post, and that's not because it was a bad movie, it just wasn't something I was interested in. The story and stuff just didn't click with me. But it wasn't necessarily a bad movie or a bad made movie or anything like that. It just wasn't something I liked. But I love, there were so many movies of his that I grew up with, like E.T. and Jaws and Jurassic Park. I grew up with all three of those movies, and the Jurassic Park franchise is one of my favorite franchises. He kicked that off. But he's also done other really great movies like Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan and War of Worlds, Always, West Side Story, his newest movie, which is a remake and one of the best remakes ever made. There's just a lot of really great movies and stuff that he's worked on and everything. I absolutely love Steven Spielberg, and every time he has a movie coming out, it's always guaranteed to be on my top 10 most anticipated movies of the year, because he never fails to deliver. And even if I don't like the movie like The Post, his directing was never the problem with that movie. The story wasn't something that really entertained me. But yeah, so anyway, let me know in the comments who your favorite movie directors are. If you want, tell me your favorite out of the ones that I chose in my top 10. And I hope you enjoy this video, and have a good day, everybody.